Hello, and thank you for listening to the podcast. We appreciate it, and we appreciate a lot of help from a lot of people all throughout this journey. So we've got a couple of shout-outs we're going to make here. The first shout-out being to Beck Sutton, the graphics designer who is designing our logo. She is the creator and owner of Primal Studios, which can be found on Facebook. Or if you go to primalst.com, you'll be able to find her work there, and she is fantastic at what she does.
Yeah, and the second shout out we'd like to make is to Andrew Stanton, composer of the song Escape the Oppression, which is the kick-ass song for our intro. We love the song, we love the dude. You can check out more of his stuff on soundstripe.com, where there's plenty of songs by plenty of other artists as well, where you can license for podcasts. So go check it out and see what's on there and see what you can use.
Stay frosty. Overestimating me. Hello and welcome to the Songs That Made Us, the podcast that likes to say, fuck you, religion! Assuming that this comes out after the last episode anyway.
Yeah, or else everyone's just taken out completely, they have no context to take that at all.
No, it's, he's ragging on religion now, he started with Tom Morello, how he's gone on.
Everyone's going to be like, did I miss an episode? I can't follow this story.
Our recording schedule has gone haywire. We've had to mix and match whilst we get a very special guest, which may or may not have happened by this point, but you're here with me, of course, Jake Hughes, the king of podcasting now. I think I've taken that title.
Rightfully so, I suppose.
And of course, my good old chum, Mr. Connor Reed.
Hello.
Now, fair warning before we get into this, we're recording 2 episodes on the spin, and there's alcohol.
Yes.
And it's the first time I've had a drink in 6 years.
Yeah, I was literally about to go on, hey, we may be on a higher production value now, because we've got mics, we're in the same place, everything's sorted, and we thought we might as well even that out by getting a bit bev beforehand.
Yeah, we've sort of shot ourselves in the foot. It's like we're actually using proper microphones, and we're actually, for the first time in the whole production of this thing, we're face to face.
Exactly, yeah.
But then, we decided to drink alcohol.
Well, yeah, you got to keep a certain standard, you know, or else we'll lose the fans that we've already had, the swarms of fans that we've managed, the cult that we've managed to create.
Well, we've managed to maintain 2 of them so far. But we've worked out our episodes too slow initially, and then they pick up a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Usually because I keep hammering on Facebook and Twitter, going, fucking listen!
Yeah. Obviously, we've got to take into account that this episode's going to be released in the future to where we are. So we do have to take into account that by this point, we've got millions of fans. So,
well, Christ, yeah, we're the king of podcasting.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So we're aware, don't worry, we're forward-thinking, and we're aware that we do have a slow fan base.
We've grabbed Conrad Thompson and Joe Rogan by the throat, respectively, and gone, motherfucker, we're the kings.
Move aside, or give us a space at the table.
Yeah, they
because we're still a bit polite.
We are British. It is our way.
Can I squeeze in here?
Excuse me, comrade. Mr. Rogan. Can I please sit down next?
Was this space taken?
We very much do the Oliver Twist approach. Please, sir, can I have some more? More? Actually, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll start singing again.
Oh, no.
We learnt on the last one how that went.
Oh, yeah, we've mentioned this story before. Everyone's... See, there we go. You haven't missed anything. We're keeping to canon.
I didn't realise we have, like, canonical stories. Yeah. Next step, we need a wiki page.
Yeah, one day. Oh. And then we need, like, a colour chart of all the different colour hairs you've had.
I'm now on green and blue.
Yeah, it's like a green rising up into blue, and the way I like to describe it is if anyone's seen Hercules, the animated film, he looks a lot like Hades from that film.
I look like Hades if he had dived head first onto a grass verge first.
Oh, right.
And then the fire sprung through the grass things.
Right, yeah. So, like, the flame's been put out, he's fallen head first into a field, skidded a little bit,
yeah.
It's stained his head, and then the flames have come back and they're just sitting on a bed of grass.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, cool.
It's either that or he's astroturfed his head.
Just for a change.
Yeah,
something new.
It's like, Hercules won't know it's me this time. But it was not intentional. I dyed it green. The green soon decided it was going to go blue. Which, who knows? I've had 3 attempts. I'm leaving it. I've given up.
It's just one of the many weird things that happened to you, Jake.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Nothing weird lately, thanks to lockdown.
No. It's because we went to Asda today, so it was fairly tame. We didn't go to Sainsbury's.
Yeah, Sainsbury's is a fucker.
Look at that, bringing up the whole canon.
Just wait and start talking about my Tinder adventures.
I was about to say, because we could have this as a final ever episode and we just sum up everything and then just tie up all the loose ends, but now we've got a whole Tinder fiasco to work through.
I mean...
It's like season 2.
I think I'm going to avoid talking about the Tinder stuff on account of it's batshit on there.
Right.
And for once, I'm painted in a good light. Like, it's not my fault. I go into things with the expectation like, this person likes me, I'm now in love, and they go, I fucked my nan. And then send me a new picture, and I go, well, this is a bit much.
Now, for anyone listening, this may sound like a massive exaggeration, but no, because it's Jake talking, this is actually something that has happened to him, and I've seen proof. And I don't know why these things happen to you. Like, anybody listening won't be able to relate, even when it comes to something as relatable as Tinder, which is one of the biggest apps in the world. It just seems to be a different experience for you, for no reason.
Well, bear in mind, my first ever my first ever match on Tinder was an amateur porn star. And again, so everybody would think, well, from a male perspective, amateur porn star, OnlyFans page, hey, you're in the money. I lost interest. I turned into Louis Theroux and was like, I've got to investigate this. I was like, right, how did you get into this life? I want to know. Give me answers. And then, but the only way I found out as well, which was worse, was like, she didn't tell me. But
which is weird, because when you told me this, like, I've been on Tinder, and I suppose a lot of guys listening have been on Tinder, and they get matched with someone, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this person's matched me. And then after a few lines of dialogue, they'll come up with, oh yeah, well, I'd like to do this, and you come and subscribe to my page and pay monthly, and then I'll, meet up with you and whatnot. And you're like, well, no, you won't, you're a liar. But for you, a situation that it seems like this would be the case, they haven't brought it up at all. You found it out.
Yeah, it was a weird one. So my only assumption is like they actually genuinely thought, oh, he's attractive, whatever, which is a mad position to begin with, in my eyes. I don't exactly have the greatest self-esteem. But the way I found out was, so she asked to get my Snapchat, and if you hear a cat meowing, I apologise. It's just Chubby. He likes to get in the way. But yeah, so she had. I didn't mean to do that. Chubby went to stuff on the laptop, which we are recording through, and
it became a Mission Impossible scenario where Jake's had to dive across to grab the cat, and now that's happening again.
The worst part is, I didn't even get him off the settee. He clung on for dear life like he's on the edge of a canyon. Sorry, I'm sending him over to Connor now. But yeah, so the way I found out was less like she told me, it was like, hey, subscribe. It was more, so we'd had Snapchat and we're talking on Snapchat. She uses that more than Tinder. So I was like, this seems normal. We were talking on that, and I was trying to get to know her a little bit. But the problem is she had 2 Snapchat accounts. So I had her personal one, but she liked to post from her private one, should we say. And the post was, which then showed up on my feed, was come watch me stick a 9-inch pink rubber dildo with my pussy on OnlyFans, and I went, oh, okay. I think I've found out something here. And I was like, right, how do I approach this? And then I thought, I've literally got no, I don't know why. It's like I had no sexual interest at that point. All I wanted to do was, this is like a rare opportunity. I'm a person who likes to approach life as an investigative journalist.
Right.
So, like,
with no readers.
With no readers and also no output. So I saw it as the opportunity to go, okay, why? But not in like a... Not
in a why would you do that sort of thing. More of a, I'm just interested in how someone gets into this kind of...
Yeah, I genuinely wanted to know. Like, just that, I'm not one who sits there and goes, well, everybody does this kind of thing, is from a broken home or has daddy issues, that kind of thing. It was just like, you live in the same area that I do. I have never met anybody who, has an OnlyFans page or is on Pornhub or anything like that. I just want to know.
Yeah, you're just kind of interested as to what that's like, how that happened.
And do you want to know
whether it benefits you and whether you can get involved?
No. No, like I said, I lost sexual interest. So, do you want to know the only thing that I learned from the whole experience?
What's that?
Porn stars are really fucking boring. It was these one-word responses like, oh, okay. And I was like, I don't want to try and make a talk with you, but I can't ignore the pink rubber dildo in the room. You've clearly... like, how do you explain that to a person? Like, I found this out about you. I wasn't snooping, but you did put up a big message and then liked it, which then showed up on my feed. Just out of curiosity.
Well, yeah, I'm sure she wanted you to see it. I mean, like...
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's a weird situation.
I don't know. I wasn't involved in the conversation, thankfully.
But, yeah, outside of that, I've just had failed ones where it all seems to be going well and then they ghost. And, yeah, one who wanted me to eat... So I've got many, many reptiles and lizards. And... one of my pictures is that, and they said to me, this is the same one who said they fucked their nan as well. So they said to me, it'll be hot if you were to eat some of your animal shed, like shed skin.
What?
And I was like, well, that's weird.
Well, yeah, that's weird.
However, I'm going to continue this conversation because I've gone down a rabbit hole.
I thought you were about to say, however, I tried it.
It was lovely.
And it's something I'm into now.
But so that was the first question. I just went, oh, well, that's an old fetish. Do you have any other weird kinks? And then, I forgot what it's called now. It's trepanning or something like that, which is the... it's what Eskimos or Inuits used to do, where, or at least in the Arctic regions, people used to do, where the process of drilling into a skull.
Right, yeah.
And she said she was into that. I was like, well, again, this is another odd kink. Not a normal... But I was thinking, well, it's not normal that you would have a person who, A, knows what that is, and then used it in a conversation on Tinder. So I was like, oh, actually, she seems like she might be quite intelligent, but she's just a bit of a prick. So I was just there like, oh, how did you get into that then? Was it like a passed down through family? Or And that is honest to God what I asked. And she went, I fucked my nan. And I said, hey, do you want to have me on Snapchat? And I went, well, not if I'm going to see pictures of you fucking your nan.
I feel like this is someone trying to be funny.
Oh,
surely.
Yeah. I'm 99% sure she was sort of like edgelord kind of thing.
Right. Just seeing how she could gauge your humour sort of thing.
Well, I played it straight. Because when I'm delivering my funny lines, I tend to be quite deadpan myself. But as I said that, and then she's like, why don't you have me on Snapchat? I was like, are you going to be fucking your nan on Snapchat? Because then no. And she went, we're missing out on the chance now. So, alright, what if I apologise really nicely? Will you have me on Snapchat then? So I did this post. She's like, I'm sorry that I doubted that your Snapchat would be for legitimate purposes and not for the purposes of you fucking your nan to an audience. And then she went, if it's easier, just add me as my Snapchat. And then she adds me. And then we're exchanging slight pleasantries, and immediately a nude photo comes through. Because I think she said something like, well, do you want to see my wet pussy? But considering everything that had gone up
reasonably speaking, you're like, well, for all I know, this could be a cat because this person is just being funny. They're making a load of jokes.
Literally what I said to her was that.
Right.
And she went, I don't lie all the time. Then bosh, I could see her kidneys. After that, I'm reasonably confident I could ace any gynecological exams. And yeah, and then she's like, oh, is this a bit too soon? I was like, just a bit. And the next thing she says, well, show me what you've got to offer.
All right.
And I'm chatting.
It's heating up.
Not for me. I was just like, this is fucked up. I'm not the kind of person who wants to send nudes. I want to get to know people and end up in a relationship. I'm a very needy individual. But I was talking to Amy Madiver at the time and saying, like, this is fucked up. I was giving her, like, play-by-play commentary on it. This is what's fucking going on. And she's like, this is weird. Like, where you do not send her a dick pic. But I went off and did other things for a bit. And so Amy texted me, like, well, I assume because you haven't responded that you've sent her one. So I was like, no, I haven't.
Amy, for anyone listening, is on a previous episode. Well done, Jake. Sticking to canon. Like it. Carry on.
Oh, no, I'm continuing. I'm adding new lore to it as well. If we do have a wiki page, like, mine's going to be yay long. Yours is going to be this tiny, you know, Connor Reed's a bloke. Yeah, so I went, well, we've already agreed that this is far too soon to be exchanging these kinds of things. So no, I'm not sending you a dick pic. And I quote, she went, well, I bet your pubes are green as well.
I wonder if that was her way of a comeback trying to offend you, or just a random statement, because she's already said so many weird things.
I think it was a sort of comeback to try and offend me. Because if it's legitimately her, she has just sent me a new picture to a person that she doesn't know, and now that person's like...
But, you know, there are meaner things to say than, I bet your pubes are green as well.
I mean, she picked the wrong person to say that to.
I think, yeah, right there.
I responded with, yeah, and on Halloween I dress it up as a leprechaun as well. And I said, occasionally we use it as spare astral turf if we want to go have a game of footy. And she was like, oh, okay. And realised that, like, I'm not rising to any bait here. It's, if you're going to try that humour on me, you've picked a person who is immune. You've picked a person who will say these kinds of shit for fun himself. And so after that, she was a bit like, she went quiet. I'll message her the next day. I don't know why.
Yeah, probably feels a bit embarrassed. I mean, she sent you a pic.
Yeah, so...
And you didn't respond or anything, so it's like...
Oh, I did respond, it's just not what she wanted.
Yeah.
But the next day I thought, oh, I'll be kind. I'll give her something funny to laugh at. So I told her about octopus wrestling. Which, if this episode comes out after the one we last recorded, you will know is fucking hilarious.
And if it doesn't, here's a quick teaser about octopus wrestling when we start talking about that. Yeah,
octopus wrestling
hilarious.
It was big back in the 50s and 60s. It's worth a listen when that podcast drops. Or if that podcast already dropped, I hope you're rolling on the floor again now, just at the sheer thought of it. And she was like, that's really funny, blah, blah, blah. And then I realised that, much like a porn star, once you got her out of that comfort zone of, I'm just going to be a sexual kind of character, she was incredibly boring. And so I didn't...
Or just wasn't that into it anymore.
Yeah, because the guy that you're trying to make uncomfortable isn't uncomfortable in any situation.
Yeah.
Apart from social gatherings. That I detest. But...
Fair.
Yeah, so I deleted her Snapchat. I didn't keep the picture. I'm not that kind of asshole.
I mean, good man.
I know. This is how I win back the fans. And this is how they like me on Tinder, and then
I love how quickly you managed to shift that back into a really unlikable picture of you. So now is it like we've already established that now we've got 1 million listeners, and now you're just trying to get laid over it?
Who wouldn't? Rock stars have their groupies.
I mean, touche.
And I think I look particularly dashing today as I recline on this sofa and worry about my shorts rolling down and exposing my bollocks. So I keep adjusting them.
Well, speaking about fetishes, let's start talking about S&M, Jake.
We're doing Arctic Monkeys.
Aww. See, that would have fit better.
Oh, you poor boy. We agreed we'd do Arctic Monkeys first.
I completely forgot.
So, this episode is a genesis of something we talked about in the very first episode, Keeping Canon, where we thought we should probably do a deeper dive on certain bands that we like as well, where we don't really know anyone who's going to pick a particular album of them. So, Connor is going first on this. I'll go next when we do that, when we do my one.
Yeah.
Which, probably the Cribs.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, I'm excited for that. I mean, I think you've got to pick bands, though, that the other person doesn't necessarily know of or listen to or like. I think that's the idea. So what I've chosen for Jake to listen to is the Arctic Monkeys. Knowing that I've been a massive fan of the Arctic Monkeys for most of my life, and I love them to pieces.
It's because they're a northern band. As we all know, he's got a strong fetish for the north.
Yeah,
I brought it back around.
Yeah, there you go. It's all to do with my dad being obsessed with Manchester for no reason.
They're from Sheffield.
Yeah, I know, it's still north.
Yorkshire and Manchester are different.
But, yeah, I've always been a massive fan of the Arctic Monkeys, and I know that Jake hasn't really ever listened to them. And I didn't really know whether he liked what he had heard or not. So I set him a challenge, which was basically, I gave him 3 songs from every single Arctic Monkeys album that's come out up until this point. And I sort of picked from each album one or two big singles, and then either 1 or 2 more obscure tracks to kind of, so he gets a full flavour of the whole albums. Because the one thing I will say about the Arctic Monkeys, in my opinion, is that their big singles don't always represent themselves as a whole, don't really represent the whole project. You'll find that the big singles come out and they're really great and everyone loves those songs. You'll buy the album and then there tends to be 1 or 2 tracks on those albums that actually are surprisingly quite heavy or quite hard or quite quick, which you didn't expect from the Arctic Monkeys. They're still amazing songs.
So I didn't know which ones were the singles for the most part.
I
did find out a couple of them, but I didn't go too in depth because
I suppose we'll probably go a little bit in. We're not going to go and spend too long on each song and each album, but we're going to talk about them a little bit. And I'll let you know which ones are the big singles and whatnot. And this for me is an interesting conversation because I think, as well as loving the Arctic Monkeys, I think the Arctic Monkeys are a great example of one of those bands that change a lot from project to project, especially when you get into their latest album and how different that is from the rest of their stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it opens up a good conversation about how bands or artists change throughout their career. Is that a good thing? Do they change for the better or the worse? How do fans react to that?
Do you want me to answer that question now?
Yeah, go on then.
It's a simple answer. They didn't change for the better.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, they did not change for the better. I think the first album... So what I was looking for is, you gave me 3 songs.
Yeah.
I was looking to listen to those 3 songs and then go, actually, I want to hear the whole album.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the latest album, no.
That didn't do it for you at all?
That did not do it for me. It sounded like a band that was either... And I know Connor's got a slightly different take than me on this, but it sounded like a band that was trying to recreate like Second Law by Muse or like Simulation Theory, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so the album Jake's talking about is
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino.
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, yeah. And
and you're the one that likes it.
I know, you know, my mind just went on a blank. I'm very tired, guys. I've been tired this whole quarantine.
You need to get a notebook.
I do need to get a notebook. I know. Jake's always so professional with these and actually writes things down, and I think, no, I'm going to stick to my big brain and I'll get by, and I forget that I don't have a big brain.
I I can never actually read my handwriting either. So I've got a notebook. It's effectively useless.
So the album you're talking about is Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, and I think for most people, whether you're a big fan of Arctic Monkeys or even just dabble in listening to them every now and then, I think everyone can agree that it's insanely different from the rest of their stuff, and I think it had a very mixed reception. And I know a load of big fans of the Arctic Monkeys that absolutely adore that album, and I know people who absolutely hate it. My dad, also a massive fan of the Arctic Monkeys, can't stand the album. He listened to it once and will never listen to it again.
Do you know what I found out wasn't a fan?
Who was that?
Noel Gallagher.
Noel Gallagher.
He was not a fan of that. He didn't mind the Arctic Monkeys at first.
No, I think they'd always had a kind of respect for each other, although Noel, being the arrogant man he always is, he tends to dislike anybody who isn't Oasis or Stone Roses or the Smiths.
He started throwing barbs at Alex Turner after that album. He was like, I think it was something like, if anyone had ever perfectly made an album that makes somebody go to sleep, it's this album.
Well, let's go through it chronologically before we get too in depth about Tranquility Base. So the first album we got is Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, and that came out in 2006. And the 3 songs I think I gave you, Jake, what were they?
It was When the Sun Goes Down, From the Ritz to the Rubble, and A Certain Romance.
Yeah, so 3 very different songs on that album. That album's, as a quick summary, for me, that album is basically about nights out in Britain as a young teenager.
It's very much sort of either semi-biographical or autobiographical, so it's very much their experiences in Sheffield.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Alex Turner, and it's a lot. It's a lot of nightlife, and it's a lot about the situation of, I suppose, lower to middle class Britain.
Working class,
on the
thoroughly.
weekends. Working class. The big single from that album is When the Sun Goes Down, so we'll go on that one first, which is a song about prostitution.
Which, as we know from the very first episode, canon again, I like the first song to be about prostitutes. If we go by the Holy Bible standard of things.
Yeah.
Really well written.
Yeah.
Excellent song, great music, good riff.
Yep. You should check out the music video as well. It's got Stephen Graham in it. It's a really good music video.
Seen it.
All right.
Unfortunately, the female actor in it, I've forgotten her name right this moment. I did look it up. She got a court order for being racist.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Stephen Graham though, excellent.
Yeah, Stephen Graham's always amazing.
He plays as John.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He does indeed.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's so to put a bit of context about it, it's about a specific area in Sheffield.
Yeah.
Which is called Neep's End in Sheffield, which is their sort of red light area. And he uses the word scum or scummy a lot.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
No.
Scummy is the term that they would use about people who lived in that area.
Right, okay. Because that word sort of changed meaning over time then. Because I hear that all the time, but people just say it as a sort of insult.
Well, yeah, it's because of obviously living in Sheffield, he can use it in both ways. So obviously that John is scum.
Yeah.
But he's also scummy because he's around that area.
Ah, really clever. So the big thing to take away, especially on these earlier albums of the Arctic Monkeys, is Alex Turner is very literal with his lyrics. But he's great. He's a great lyricist. And especially back in these days, these songs are really relatable. And the reason why I got into them at such a young age is because I just connected with everything he was saying. He was speaking to me as like a young teenager really strongly. And these songs reflect a lot of what was happening to me at the time or what I saw at the time.
I say what does make me laugh though. Obviously, he talks about nights out in that. My most memorable night out was with you.
Oh no!
On my 9th, it's not the one where I punched you in the face, and it's not the one where you shouted. No. They've got their lights on. I'm going to knock them out either. There will be context about that, but I'm not going to give it. No, it was my 19th.
Yeah.
We went down. We went downtown. You were outside by Rebs. I was across on the little zebra crossing.
Yeah.
I was dealing with the situation because one of our friends had been racist to a bloke.
Yes, I remember this.
I was diffusing that situation. I look across the road and I see Connor on the floor with 3 people over him, punching him in.
Yeah, I got beaten up crossing the road.
Yeah. Well, it was less beaten up. Like, you managed to shell up perfectly. They weren't really getting any strong hits in.
No.
So I turned back around to the situation I'm dealing with. I said, look, mate, you can punch him if you want. Got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, well, see, what happened with that situation is I saw the ruckus that was going on. I went to go back across the road, and then some guy knocked into me, but me being me, I apologised for it, even though he walked into me. So I was like, oh, sorry, mate. And I carried on walking, didn't think anything of it, and then all of a sudden I've been hit at the back of the head, and him and two of his mates were just kicking me while I was on the ground.
Yeah, and you can see like his little rabbit punches coming up from Connor as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, poking up as best as I can. That's a Plymouth night out, guys.
Yeah, so... And the only two people that decided to help Connor were two people called Jake.
Yeah, completely.
One of the drunk guys, he knocked my glasses off. And for some reason in my drunken state, I decided that rather than approaching this with physicality, I thought I was going to try and reason with him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard this part because you were busy on the floor still with the other two.
No.
I said to him, like, he was like, no, let me back over there and I'll beat up that guy. I was like, well, if you can give me a good reason, I'll let you go. If you can't give me a good reason, you stay here. I was giving him like, I was like the Holy Grail. We've got the guy on the bridge. It's like, hey, you must answer my questions. What is your favourite colour? I would just say like, no, give me a reason. Give me a good reason. What's he done to you? Has he, did he call your firstborn child a cunt? If so, you may have a punch. But I was too busy. Like, he couldn't give me a reason. He's like, no, go, I'll fuck you up, blah blah blah. It's like, no, give me a reason.
I'm taking the moral high ground here. Just tell me why, sir.
And he punched me in the face. My glasses flew off into the crowd of onlookers. But where he punched me, my arm went back and accidentally clipped his girlfriend.
Oh, man.
And then she slapped me. She's like, well, you punched me. I was like, well, fucking didn't, mate.
Yeah, I think I remember this, yeah.
And I turned around to him and it's like... And that was when I sort of went... Physicality is the best way. I've learned. I went, so what you got, mate? I fucking like squared up to him, and he went away, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And then the police came over, and I started having a go at the police. So, well, you watched this person get jumped by three people.
No, I remember this. I remember yelling at the police as well because they asked me if I was okay, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine, but why didn't you do anything to stop it, or why aren't you going after the people running away right now?
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
I think it was more the police that made them go rather than me suddenly turning into an MMA fighter.
Feral.
I've got quick fists, but I'm not a strong man.
That's the thing. So, like, obviously, I've had amazing nights out, but I will say that this sort of atmosphere that we're talking about now is the kind of atmosphere that's very typical of a British night out, and that's what this album talks about a lot. There's a lot of songs about fights, a lot of songs about how sensitive people can be and how people are just looking for something to happen, and there's an electricity in the air, and like
I think
a lot of this album's about that.
I think a lot of that though can be down to there's a British attitude, and it's mostly a football based kind of thing with hooliganism and sort of lager louts, that kind of thing, which has been sort of bred since the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Where if you're getting drunk, it's usually because you're going to the football on a Saturday and you're going to get into a punch-up with the opposing fans. Yeah. And that sort of is then pervaded into, well, anybody who's going out is looking for a scrap or a ruckus.
Completely. I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's about, people going into their own little groups and enjoying it, feel proud of those groups, and then by being so in your own group and being very proud of that, you're very against other kinds of groups. And there's competition in it, which I get the entertainment of, but obviously it's not on and it's not right.
Well, it's nothing justifiable about it.
No, exactly. And so the other thing to pick up on as well, so I've been caught up on when I listen to this kind of music, and is that people call it chav music.
Yeah.
And I used to be a chav, big time. And so for anyone who doesn't know, chav stands for Council House and Violent.
And we are two products.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I was so much violent, but I've been around violence.
You've had your moments.
But yeah, and so a lot of the music in this is working class, modern day, young teenage British music, and it conveys that attitude of, high testosterone, just that violence, the being proud of having nothing but your mates and your reputation, and just being against getting a job or against being a good citizen, essentially, which there is an attitude of. When you're a young teenager, I was susceptible to it. When you're a young teenager in certain areas of this country, you're very proud to be totally outside of society and be as disruptive to it as possible. And I remember, I'm not proud of it, but I remember one day I was walking down the street with my mates after having a few drinks, and I was like 14 years old, and I was just kicking off side mirrors of cars, which is, a really fucked thing to do, looking back. But at the time, I was like, yeah, isn't this sick? How fucking tough am I, mate? Get on, bud.
I think with that, the gateway drug is stealing hubcaps, isn't it? That's how we all started.
No, it's true, yeah, when we were little kids, you steal hubcaps off of cars and you put them on your bicycles, like, they're your cars.
No, Christ, I was nicking by the time that I was, like, sort of 8, 9.
Yeah, and this music feeds into that. I don't know, I think that's always been around in England anyway, that kind of lifestyle.
I think the music, though, is not, and the lyrics especially, they're not condoning it, though. It's more...
No, it's a commentary.
Yeah.
It's a massive commentary. I mean, so so I did a kind of cheatsy doodle thing on this album when I sent you these 3 songs. Usually I would send you 3 songs from 3 different points in the album, but these are actually the 3 last songs in actual order of the album.
Yeah.
And I will say, my main criticism about this album, even though I love this album to pieces, it may be my favourite Arctic Monkeys album, is a lot of the songs are speaking about the same stuff, which is nights out, violence, da-da-da. And these last 3 songs show a nice, varied difference and kind of an overview of what the whole album is about. It summarises the album really well. And like I said, with When the Sun Goes Down, you've got this woman in need, but providing as best she can and getting by as best she can, doing something that she obviously, it's not that glamorous, but it's part of that lifestyle. Then you got From Rich to Rubble, which is about, fighting on a night out and also
it's having a fight
regrets.
with a bouncer.
Yeah, it's having a fight with a bouncer is the first verse, and then the second verse is sort of, more along the lines of, what did I do last night? And at the time it doesn't matter, because when you're getting drunk, who cares? Everything like that, and then the morning later you don't even regret it because it's part of the lifestyle you're in.
Well, it's also the thing of like the morning later, all the conversations that you had the night before.
Yeah, and how they were so important at the time.
Yeah, but they seem absurd in hindsight.
Yeah. And then you got A Certain Romance, which kind of feeds into basically everything we've been talking about here, which is, they're talking about how that glamorized version of nostalgia or stuff, when people look back at their teenagehood and you go, oh my god, my first kiss, my skipping stones with my mates and everything like that, all of that stuff that people fantasize about that they used to do when they were teenagers, that doesn't exist anymore. And nowadays, when you're young and you're a teenager, at least in these areas of Britain, it's all about ringtones on your phone, or it used to be back in the early 2000s. It's not even that anymore.
When you'd have it on your old Nokia, and you'd have
when I had Bluetooth on my phone, and you'd ping it between your mates.
Oh yeah, the Sony Ericsson Walkman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that was so that even this music's kind of dated now because that's not even a thing anymore. But yeah,
99p.
Yeah, but it was all about just hanging out with your mates, drinking underage, getting music off your phones. You're wearing your Reeboks or your Nike shoes and your tracksuits. And it's true, like, he's making a commentary saying that there's no romance in that. There's nothing fantastical about that. There's nothing that you'd see in Hollywood about that. And it's true, and that's what life is like for majority, I would say, of young Britons in this country.
Certainly the poorest areas. We were, I think both of us can safe to say, we were both working class. We were both we're not exactly from the richest of families, should we say?
No. Both grew up in fairly what you'd call rundown areas.
Yeah, well, I sort of live adjacent to several rundown areas.
Yeah.
But no, I live in a real old people's area. But then right next to me is the rougher area where I would go to school.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying that half my time was in Hollignol, which is a shithole.
Yeah.
Which is, not a very nice area. I got punched there coming out of the shops when I was 10.
Oh, really?
Hollignol Green. I was coming out of the shops. I just bought myself some Euro 2004 football stickers.
Nice.
And I looked up,
A guy went, "What are you looking at?" And he was a couple of years older than me. So he was in his teens. He went, "What are you looking at?" He punched me in the face.
Yeah.
And I went, "What?" I wasn't sort of phased by it. I was shocked because it was like, he just punched me in the face.
Yeah.
The fuck's
For
going on?
nothing.
Yeah. But growing up in the environment I did, I didn't rise to it. If it was a couple of years later, I would have rise to it because I was a little bit of a shithole. But, I went back to the parent that I was staying with, and they went, "Well, why don't you start it? Why don't you fucking throw back?" and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
that's the thing, isn't it? It's also this sort of lifestyle. It was endorsed by our parents. Not that they were doing a bad job or anything, but it's also the upbringing that they had.
I will say, for me, it wasn't both. It was only one.
Right, yeah, completely, yeah. And for me, in my case, well, I would say my parents never endorsed it, but they always talk about standing up for yourself, which is true. And I firmly believe you should stand up for yourself. And then obviously there's different ways of standing up for yourself when you're at different ages. And
yeah, I was told that violence was the answer.
Yeah, and I was told that at a certain age as well. But yeah, I think for me...
I think it's both the same parent for us as well.
Yeah, I think for me, this album... Maybe I've got a bit of nostalgia about it, because I definitely... We'll talk about this in a bit. This is definitely not the best produced of their albums. And in terms of music, it is very distorted. It's very good. Like, the drumming in this album is excellent. The guitar is very plinky-plonky. It's reminiscent of Libertines, I find.
They were very inspired by the Strokes.
Yeah, they were very inspired by the Strokes. And it is that sound. It's very distorted. And it is quite messy, but it's purposely done that way. And I would say it has elements of, like, this shabby version of punk sometimes.
Now,
it's definitely harder rock for more mainstream rock.
I would say, yeah, hard rock, DIY, indie.
Yeah.
Would be all the tags I'll throw in it. Now, going back to A Certain Romance, got a little bit I want to say about that.
Yeah, I thought you'd love that song, lyrically as well.
Not as much.
No, alright.
Do you want to know what threw me off?
What's that?
That intro riff. I've heard it before.
It sounds like a Libertine song.
Nope.
Oh.
The song we used to play at one point. Ocean Colour Scene.
Alright.
Do 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 do.
Wait, it doesn't sound like that. It doesn't sound like Riverboat song.
It does.
Wait, so how does A Certain Romance start again? Because I only think of it when the Pinky Plonky...
I'll tell you how it starts. Dun, 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 dun. That is literally how it starts. It starts 100% like that. I know because I've played it on bass.
Okay, fair.
So this album, the 3 songs on that, I liked. Apart from Certain Romance, where I was a bit more iffy with it, because I wasn't a big fan of Ocean Colour Scene either.
Oh, I love Ocean Colour Scene.
And I thought, like a thing was like, is this an Arctic Monkeys song? This has been done before.
But the thing is, in all fairness,
it changes
the song's
after
credit.
intro.
Yeah, it only uses it as like a 5-second sort of intro, and it comes back to it near the end of the song. But
I think my only note on that song as well, apart from starts quite like Ocean Colour Scene, was not a Chav fan.
right, yeah. And that's the thing, it is chavvy music.
I was trying to work out what I'd written. I've literally been looking at it for the past half an hour going,
yeah.
Not an arachnid? What?
And you're right, like, it doesn't endorse that culture, but it doesn't necessarily, go against it either.
Because that's the one where he talks about his friends.
Yeah,
and
he says over there there's broken bones, there's only music, so there's new ringtones.
Yeah, I know.
But he kind of justifies it because he goes, but that's not what the point is.
It circles back around at the end, but like the first
Yeah.
2 verses in the bridge are very much like, well, these people are a bit dickheads.
Well,
They're my friends.
They're my friends, so I love them, but I can see that there's no... Well, obviously there's no romance about it. Like, it's a grubby lifestyle that I don't necessarily want to be a part of. Because I've got a better picture of the world in my head. But then he kind of circles round to go, well, actually, no matter what the picture of the world that I have imagined in my head is, this is the real world, and that's what young teenagers are doing.
Now, should we move on to the second album?
Quickly, I do want to briefly talk about Ritz to Rubble, because I do think that's your favourite song out of these 3.
Nope.
Oh, was yours the When the Sun Goes Down? Fair. But from Ritz to Rubble is just quickly I wanted to add really nice, quick sort of building song that has just a great, especially the whole first verse and the opening track and stuff.
It was my second favourite.
Yeah. That's actually a song that you used in a GCSE drama piece, which I'm surprised you can't remember, but you did. I think when you did Bouncers or something like that, or Teachers. No, I think it was Bouncers.
I have no memory of this. Are you sure it was on your group?
Yeah, 100%. I'm certain you were in it, because I remember watching you in it.
No.
Fair.
No, you're wrong.
Alright, we can cut that. It's fine.
Oh,
Carry on.
GCSE, what do we did Romeo and Juliet, where I played Nursey. I wasn't in any school plays that time.
No, it was when we all got split up into smaller groups.
So GCSE...
It may not have been GCSE, it may have been year 9, because there may have been 2 different classes.
GCSE we did Brecht, which is where we did our mental health play.
Yeah.
We also did a war play as well.
Warhorse.
No, Warhorse was A level.
Oh, right.
It was the one that we... Yeah, it's the one we wrote. Where me and Nathan went out and played football.
Fair. I just remember, we could cut all this, I don't mind. But,
doesn't matter. But you're wrong!
Okay, so we'll move on from the first album, but overall thoughts on the first album.
Good.
If you had a quick summary of, some taglines you'd say.
Good lyrics, catchy music. It was alright.
Would you listen to the whole album?
I did.
You did? Oh, you have listened to the whole album now? Do you have any other songs that I didn't put on there that are actually better than these 3 songs for you personally, or?
No, When the Sun Goes Down was still my favourite. Because I like the harder riff that it goes into.
Yeah.
I like the chorus. I just wish it went on a little bit longer.
Fair. I wish, because I was iffing and umming about putting songs like Fake Tales of San Francisco's on this, because I thought you would really like those songs. They're a bit harder, or...
I think out of the whole lot, this was my favourite album.
Oh really? Out of all the Art of the Monkeys albums?
Out of what I listened to, yes.
Yeah.
Because the other albums I haven't listened to in full.
Fair. I mean, this is definitely their most distorted, their most rough and ready album, which I know you dig. Okay, so the second album we've got is Favourite Worst Nightmare, which I most consistently do say is my favourite Art of the Monkeys album.
Do you know you kept telling me that I would know a song?
That you would know a song, yeah.
I did.
Fluorescent Adolescence.
Yeah.
I knew you knew that song. So
I knew the chorus. I didn't know the rest of the song.
yeah. So Fluorescent Adolescence is one of these 3 songs from this album. It's probably their biggest song of all time. Maybe that's changed now with albums like AM, but Fluorescent Adolescent is what, apart from maybe I Bet That You Look Good on the Dance Floor, this song really pushed them into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
This album's a lot cleaner. It's a lot more well produced, but it's still quite heavy music. But they think more. I don't know. They're just less messy with the music. The music all feels more planned out in this album, and again, the drums are absolutely phenomenal.
I think the easy thing for me is to compare them to another Yorkshire band who are around at the same time, which is the Cribs.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the Cribs.
Yeah, fair.
I think they've got better riffs.
Yeah.
The Germans are amazing. But the Cribs are very much saying their first album is really fucking weird. Really distorted and very badly produced. The second album is more on point. It's got its message.
It's just a bit more. It's not mainstream, but it's a bit more mainstream. It's a bit more accessible.
It's a bit more polished.
Yeah, and the messages in this second album as well. Because whereas the first album was basically all about massive nights out, this one kind of tries to look at more of Britain as a whole. And it's got songs about various different kinds of things. All still very working class in nature, all very relatable in nature as well. It's still very much girls wanting guys, or there's a song about a guy really wanting a girl. The girl doesn't want to use a condom, and that's a stupid thing to do. Not very pretty things to do with songs, but songs that a young lad can relate to a lot, and young women as well. So the 3 songs I picked from this album for you to listen to were Fluorescent Adolescent.
Yeah.
Did I pick Do Me a Favour? No, I picked 505.
And D is for Dangerous.
And D is for Dangerous, yeah. So they're actually very evenly split throughout the album. What was your favourite out of the 3? Did you like these 3 songs?
This was tougher. I think Fluorescent Adolescent was my favourite.
Mm-hmm.
D is for Dangerous was alright. 505. The one thing I learned about it is there's the organ in the song. Do you know where that's from?
No.
It's a sample of Ennio Morricone.
Hmm. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
He recently passed away. So,
Yeah.
but I felt that lyrically he was trying too hard to be "There Is a Light."
Oh, really? See, I picked 505 for you because I think lyrically that song's amazing. Like, I think it's one of my favourite songs lyrically that they've done.
All I can think is he was singing throughout the whole thing is, and if a double-decker bus crashes into
I mean, but they are still very Smiths inspired. But I mean, what band isn't Smiths inspired in modern day Britain?
Exactly, but yeah, so I didn't really get on that song because I felt it was trying too hard.
I probably don't think they were, but I think they're just accidentally influenced. Again, I love Alex Turner as a lyricist, and maybe I'm biased towards it. And I have to say, lyrically speaking, I relate more to Art the Monkey songs than I do Smith songs.
Yeah.
And I thought I love this, especially in these first two albums. I love the simplicity in Alex Turner's lyrics, where they're so instantly recognizable, so instantly relatable. He still uses some clever metaphor here and there, and clever imagery here and there. But it's just like the image of a girl lying on her side, hands between the thighs, with a smile. Like it's just a clear picture in your head, and it suits. He paints the scene really clearly in your head. I love 505.
Do you know what that was about?
No, go on then.
That was him coming home for tour, picturing his girlfriend.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Whereas Fluorescent Adolescent is about aging. Yep. I couldn't be asked to care what D is for Dangerous is about.
So D is for Dangerous is about a guy getting into a girl who's obviously into him, but it would be a real mistake for various different reasons to get with this girl, and she wants to do stuff like not use a condom, which is not a good idea. It's just bad news for this guy to get with this girl, but he can't help it.
I do have another little factoid about Fluorescent Adolescent. Do you know who directed the music video?
No.
Richard Iwadi.
Ah, that's so cool. I love Richard Iwadi.
He directed several of those.
Yeah. Well, so I knew he was close to them. I mean, they're one of those big bands now that are close to a lot of your typical figures in British media.
But he did a music video for Crying Lightning and Cornerstone.
Ah, right, cool.
But the term associated with the band as well, lyrically, is kitchen sink realism, which is that whole idea of working class.
Yeah, especially with these first two albums. I think that changes a bit from now on. But but definitely with these first two albums, it's very kitchen sink. That's exactly right. Did you listen to much more else of this album?
No. It
Really?
didn't hook me.
I think you'd like this album a lot. There are better songs than the ones I picked. My favourite song probably on the album is a song called "Do Me a Favour," which also has really great lyrics.
So you see what Connor's done there is he's picked me 3 songs that aren't that great.
So I had to pick a big single, and that was either going to be Brian Storm, which I think you know, and I actually think you really like as well. But Fluorescent Adolescent was easily the biggest song on this album, so I thought that's got to be one. I picked D is for Dangerous because I thought that was very different from Fluorescent Adolescence and 505, and I picked 505 because it showed their versatility when going slower with music and showing their build-up and showing lyrical quality. So D is for Dangerous is just to be different from the other two songs, really.
And the only note it got was, it's okay.
It
worked.
I recommend listening to this album. I don't know whether you'd prefer it to the first album, but I definitely think there's songs on there that you'd really enjoy. And I do recommend especially Do Me a Favour. I think that's maybe it may be my favourite Art the Monkey song, but it's definitely my favourite on this album. It's really good.
I'll give it a go at some point.
But yeah, you already see that. So between the first album and this album, they haven't changed a lot, but they're thinking more about. It's definitely a little bit more mainstream, more accessible, a lot cleaner, and the structures of songs have been toyed around with a little bit. They're really toying around with slowing down and speeding up, and they're not just your typical, kind of punkish band anymore.
I just want to make mention of something. And we're back. We're live.
Live indeed.
In the studio.
Ready to talk about the third album of the Arctic Monkeys. But yeah, actually, overall thoughts of Favourite Worst Nightmare.
Lyrically better than the last album.
Right.
Sorry if you can hear a lot of scuffling. That'll be a dog. That'll be 2 dogs. There may be some barking in a moment. Lyrically more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the songs that you picked.
Yeah, fair.
It was alright. I quite liked it.
Okay.
Not as good as the first album. First album was the best.
Fair?
So we had Crying Lightning.
Oh, right, yes. Now on the third album, which is Humbug, which came out in 2009. So they haven't been around long. One thing you'll see as the albums go on is that they take longer and longer to bring out their albums, and then they start to sound more and more different.
Yeah.
Which and their sound changes a lot, which could be to do with them growing up more. Could be to do with a load of different reasons, I suppose. But yeah, so Humbug, and the three songs I chose you to listen to from Humbug were Crying Lightning, Cornerstone, and Pretty Visitors. And the differences with this album, because it was harder, both Crying Lightning and Cornerstone were singles. Both were like wide releases and very well received.
Both directed by Richard Iwadi for the music video.
And they are trippy music videos if you've seen them. So.
That's canon now.
And then and the Pretty Visitors is the oddball pick, which is very different from the other two songs.
Well, I'll start with Pretty Visitors then. My notes on that. Another esoteric song, seemingly about nada.
Oh really? Fair. Interesting. I don't get that at all.
It just felt like it was about nothing again.
Okay.
And I didn't enjoy that song as much.
Fair. Okay. I see.
Was that the oddball pick that you thought I would enjoy?
I thought you'd really enjoy Pretty Visitors, yeah, because it's a very heavy song, especially for them. And it's a very hard song.
Heaviness is no good without the music, without the lyrics. Sorry.
True, but I like the lyrics of that song because I see Pretty Visitors, and they did it with one of their songs on their first album, which is All You People Are Vampires, which is directed at their fans, and it's kind of aggro against their fans. I see Pretty Visitors as a song directed at all of the people that come and listen to their music and don't necessarily support them or never used to support them and now pretend that they're best friends and stuff. It's all about the fakeness of fans.
Which sounds a hell of a lot to me like the New Fellas by the Cribs, that album.
Fair.
Which is all about people who stole their music style. Like these guys did a bit. And yeah, also the sort of fans who jump on the bandwagon, but also very reminiscent of In Bloom by Nirvana.
Yeah, completely, yeah.
Because he's the one.
Yeah, so I'm surprised you didn't get any substance out of it. But so one thing to say musically about this whole album in general is that they've gone back to a way more distorted and a lot more of a weird sound. And this album's, I suppose, maybe you could say it's a bit more psychedelic.
Yeah, a little bit.
They go for some weird sort of spacey noises. They've got genuinely a slower tempo and like a more of a straightforward rock sound.
Yeah. I'd go with that.
Maybe. But I think they do more interesting songs. I really love this album, and I think it's their most underrated album. But you know, whereas the songs before were very kitchen sink, as we said, very relatable, here he's made songs that are about really weird things. Crying Lightning, about a girl, maybe a relationship, but a very weird one, a very toxic one.
I loved Crying Lightning.
Fair, yeah, I think Crying Lightning is a great song.
About falling for a crazy or bad girl.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was, welcome to Tinder, Jack.
Very well, yeah, I see now. But so one thing to make note of, and you said it before when you prefer the Cribs guitar riffs, they go a lot more guitar centric on this album. There's much more clear riffs.
I always think that the Arctic Monkeys, they sounded very much more along the lines like the Libertines, where it's messy guitars. Without anything that hooks you though.
Right.
Whereas like with things like Can't Stand Me Now or Don't Look Back Into the Sun or Last Post on the Bugle, those are songs that do have great riffs in there in all that mess.
But then when you get to this album, and basically from here on for a little while, they flip the opposite, and their songs are very much centered around the riffs. The riffs are the highlights of the songs, and they're very clear. Crying Lightning's got a great riff. It's one of the first riffs I learned on guitar, actually. Nice. And then Cornerstones, you're much more... I suppose it's a more typical acoustic song, but it's not a typical acoustic song.
No.
And it's a very weird song because it's about a guy walking around trying to find girls who are similar to a girl he once slept with, and asking if he can call that girl's name because he's become a bit obsessed. And he takes a taxi Ask It to Go the Long Way Round because he smells a smell that reminds him of this other lady. So it's a very creepy song.
Do you know who the last girl is? Who he gets to do
It's
it?
his sister, the girl's sister, which
Yeah.
I thought you'd really like. So this is a song that I thought lyrically you'd really enjoy.
It was my second favourite out of the three, but only by like a smidge.
Right.
There was no sort of clear gap on that
Okay.
one. Crying Lightning was just because like I can relate to this, as we've learnt about the I Fucking album. I say woman troll like thing in hindsight.
And so both of those songs,
Didn't look like a troll
no.
though. Anatomy wise, from what I could tell.
So one thing to note as well on both of those songs is like they've got
Great old troll meat flaps.
trying to bring us back.
And that's not the alcohol talking either, that's me.
Okay, to bring it back. One thing as well about the choruses on this album is they're a lot more straightforward rock and roll choruses that are very catchy. The choruses they've done before are very lyrically dense. And some of them, like When the Sun Goes Down, you can sing along to, or I Bet That You Look on the Dance Floor, you can sing along to. But almost every chorus on this album you can chant along to. And they're very, very catchy and they're very interesting.
It's their first attempt at an arena album.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. And but I would say this is less accessible than the second album. And this album actually, when it came out at the time, I remember really liking it straight away. But this album, because it's so different from the previous two, they lost quite a few fans. Their fans liked their fast-paced kitchen sink rock and roll. They didn't like that they were changing to this more, because lyrically it's a lot more imagery, it's a lot more metaphor, it's a lot less relatable.
I hate to take us off topic for a second, but I've just noticed something astounding. This microphone smells like peanut butter. I don't know why. But yes, I know what you mean. It does. It goes back to the first album where it's somewhat accessible, but it's also very unique to themselves.
Yeah. Especially Alex. Like I think Alex Turner is a little bit more personal. Specifically, just talking about him. I don't know if he's being that autobiographical. I think he's making up characters, but these songs are all very much from a certain point of view, rather than painting a very real picture of what does already exist. They're more showing you giving you glimpses into these very weird lifestyles or these very weird impulses that people have.
So, moving on.
Oh wait, you already want to move on?
Unfortunately, we're on a time limit.
One thing I do want to say as well is I think
Go on.
I don't know, but I think this album was very drug influenced as well, which is why it gets this very weird, messy sound. But yeah, I'm upset you didn't like Pretty Visitors that much. What are your thoughts on this album entirely? I know you probably haven't listened to the whole album.
No, I haven't listened to the whole album. I thought Crying Lightning and Cornerstone were excellent, both musically and lyrically. I thought Pretty Visitors, it was fine musically, it was just a bit...
Do you reckon you'll go back and listen to this whole album? Because it's got some amazing songs on it.
Maybe.
Fair.
Add a push if I'm bored. Which is when I do my best music listening to.
Fair.
Now, bear in mind, I have learnt the majority, everything up until the last album, like the 3 songs each on bass.
Oh right, all of these songs that I've shown you. Fair.
So I've put effort in here.
Fair.
It's because I had a bit longer than I thought to, in terms of recording.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, if anybody, because I know their first 2 albums were very, very popular. Some people fell off the map a little bit listening to them when Humbug came out, but I do implore people to give it another listen again. I think it's their most underrated album. I think it's really, really excellent as a full project. Doesn't necessarily have any songs on there that are their best songs, but as a whole album, it could be their best album.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good album. It's really different.
Album number 4.
Yes, so album number 4, a bit of a this is personally my least favourite album of Arctic Monkeys. This is Suck It and See. I still love this album, but it's less interesting than the other ones for me. So what are the 3 songs I gave you from this one?
Don't Sit Down Because I've Moved the Chair.
Yes, that was their big single from this album.
The Hellcat Spangled Shalalala.
Great song title.
Yep. And Library Pictures.
Right, yes. What did you think of these 3?
They're alright, like nothing hooked me.
So you weren't offended by any of them? You didn't think they were crap, but you didn't love them either?
No, I think the only one that slightly hooked me was Library Pictures.
I love
had a
Library
good
Pictures.
had a good guitar riff, but I just wasn't feeling it.
Fair. So this album is when they started to transition into, I would say overall, I mentioned to you before, they're overall less British-centric.
I'm assuming this was the point where Alex Turner started gelling his hair up.
Yeah, this is when he started to go for a more just general rock and roll feel.
He suddenly decided that he's going to be John Travolta in Grease.
He actually started
or
to look like
Kinnicky.
that, yeah. And I think this is when they're transitioning to more accessible music worldwide. They started to get a bit bigger in America. And so it's less about British things, which obviously isn't a thing to hold against an album, but personally I quite like. I'm not prejudiced towards British music, I just love British music. And
Well, the main thing to talk about with Alex Turner is the way he sings on the first 3 albums.
it's talking.
He's using his own accent, which is a very thick Yorkshire accent. And it plays in words of the song, so it gives a homely feel to it to an extent. Obviously, we're Southern boys, so we don't have that Northern accent, but you can flip and go, it does remind us of home.
Yeah, exactly, but it
kind of
also
way.
suits the style of music more, and that's I've spoken on this podcast before. I love singers who are singers, and I also love my bands who are authentic. And Arctic Monkeys were always a really authentic band that I really loved. I loved that they used their own accents. I loved that they talk about Sheffield. I loved that they were really, working class, really relatable. I still love them when they changed out of that, but definitely now they become a bit more, I don't want to say generic, but he actually starts to sing now. He doesn't use his own accent. He almost has this kind of Elvish / David Bowie tone of voice. He definitely sings better, technically speaking, but for me it's a little bit less interesting.
It doesn't fit as well.
Right.
From how I view it, yes, technically it sounds better, it sounds cleaner, but I would much prefer to hear him still using his Sheffield accent.
I think it gives him more of an identity.
Yeah, but it works better with the lyrics, because he does sort of lyrics at 100 miles per hour when he sings. If you're trying to do that in a clean way, it doesn't always work unless you're a phenomenal singer.
Well, so here's the thing with this album as well, which is maybe why it's my least favourite. Again, still love it, but it's my least favourite. Is now they slow the tempo right down for most of the songs, and they're a lot more simple, musically speaking, very based around simple guitar riffs. The drumming on this album, which up until this point he's been insane on the drums. He still is insane on the drums on this album, but they're less of a focal point. In this album, it's all around the guitar, and it's very rock and roll guitar. And it's very old school rock and roll guitar. When you think of The Who or the Kinks, they're going for that sort of sound. It's a lot more hollow. The music's less filled in production-wise. Especially when you get into songs like Brick by Brick on the album, which I know I didn't tell you to listen to, but also for example, Don't Sit Down Because I've Moved Your Chair. And he slows down lyrically, and he's also less topical with his lyrics. He's speaking more generically.
Yeah, and just that whole line of "Don't sit down because I've moved your chair." What a fucking stupid line.
See, I really like that line because it's still very common, and it's very typical of what you'd hear.
I wouldn't mind if that was just the song title.
Right, but not used.
But to have that as a line in the chorus, it's just fucking. It feels like it's a departure from the rest of the song.
Yeah. So how did you think about that song lyrically anyway? Because it's weird lyrically. Because it's a load of gibberish.
Yeah, I just literally wrote another weird one.
Yeah.
That was my.
It was the biggest. It's a huge song. People absolutely love that song.
I would question those people's sanity.
I like the song a lot, but I do have to admit, lyrically, I think it's all basically about don't get too big for your boots. And he goes about saying, don't get too big for your boots, over and over again in a load of different ways.
Ironically, this is when he started getting too big for his boots.
You're getting aggressive now.
Slightly. This is what?
Yeah.
Be a 5?
Yeah. But so basically,
I'm entitled to it, goddammit.
If you wrote down, I hate to say this, because again, I do love this band, but I do have to admit, if you wrote down, don't get too big for your boots, don't get too big for your boots, over and over again, it would sum up every single line in this song. Like kung fu fighting on your roller skates, don't do that.
I mean,
Don't get.
I suppose the next step is he writes Goo Goo Goo.
Yeah, well,
Like, you know.
you're going bringing it back to the Beatles again. It's
Let's
Cuckoo
not.
Cuckoo, by the way. It's not Goo
I
Goo
don't care. It's gibberish.
But yeah, Library Pictures is the one I thought you would like out of the three of these, because I do think this is. The Library Pictures is genuinely a really good song, and lyrically it's a lot better as well.
I think my only issue with it is, again, I was constantly in my head comparing to the Cribs just because of geographical location more than anything, which I shouldn't do because they're different bands. But when I saw Library Pictures, and it's the third album, all I could think of was the Cribs. So it is. It's the fourth album. Well done. Sorry, I didn't see my squiggly line there. It's the fourth album, but all I could think of was Moving Pictures by the Cribs.
Right, okay, yeah.
Which is on their third
They
album.
sound very different, they're not the same.
Oh yeah, they do sound completely different, but I think it was just the title. Like, literally all I could think was Moving
Yeah.
Pictures.
So I think by this point they don't sound anything like the Cribs. I think they still have a little little bit of the Strokes in them, but more produced Strokes, like later on Strokes, not first album Strokes.
Yeah, I will say this does sound nothing like the Cribs. It was literally just a song title.
Yeah, okay.
That was enough for me.
And what did you think about Hellcat's Spangled Shalalala?
Did I need to listen to it?
Well, so that for me, I picked that for you to listen to because a few of the songs on this album sound of this similar sort of. I don't know. For some reason, it makes me think of 80s England, or like it's like disco music, disco hall music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not disco music. It's still very much rock and roll, but it's stuff you'd listen to at a function. Back in the day, I know people don't do this anymore, but back when we were younger, you used to, where you'd rent out. You know, pubs would have a whole function room, and your families would have parties there. Birthday parties at a huge function room. You know, there'd be a disco ball in the middle with a dance floor, and this is one of those songs that you played there. I'm sad that people don't do that anymore. I suppose it's because the seats always.
I think they still.
Don't they?
I think they still do.
People don't really.
It's just a lot rare because people just go out for a night out.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot more commercial now.
We've been to parties like that.
Yeah, back when we were younger, it used to be the thing. But I'd say since like 2000, like mid 2014, like that's very specific. But like
we had one at the Falstaff.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, my local pub.
I'm not going to mention who it was actually because there's a whole story. Let's not. Let's move on.
Yeah, but it's that style of music where it's very much.
It was an intriguing story.
Sing along like sha-la-la-la. It's a very sing along song sort of to do, and then it's the verses are a lot more like. You do.
Yeah, I thought it could
sing
fuck
along
off.
song.
This is the problem. Like, you've painted a picture of me as I'm this guy who I like heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily fair, but it can be accurate
Yeah.
at times. This didn't do it for me.
Fair. I mean, yeah.
If the sing along was good, I'd not. Fuck
Yeah,
off.
I think they went a bit retro with this album. I think that's the whole idea. Maybe it was a concept album. I don't really know. I mean, they
was a
have
miss.
done concept albums. There are a few. I like the album. It's my least favorite Art the Monkeys album, but I like the album. Your thoughts on the overall three songs that you listened to?
Meh.
A bit meh. Yeah. Yeah, fair.
Very meh. Not even a bit.
It's the hollow sound for me. It took me a while to get into that album.
It was a departure.
Yeah, it's very different, especially from Humbug, which is a very full, highly produced album.
Yeah.
But now we get to the big one. I think this is actually, maybe commercially speaking, their biggest album. This is definitely the album that made them huge worldwide, which is AM. It's probably got all of their biggest hits of all time. If you know the Arctic Monkeys, nowadays you may only know them from this album.
If you know the song "Are You Mine," that's on this album. If you played Rocksmith,
Yeah. Are You Mine? Do I Want to Know? Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High? Those are the three massive singles that went worldwide. And Arabella is actually a really big song as well. So the three songs I told you to listen to, I think two of them were. What did I do? I did Do I Want to Know?
Yep.
Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High? And then did I do I Want to Be Yours?
You
Which
did.
is the last song on the album. I picked that one because it's very different from the other two. This album, they went heavy on production. it's still very empty space. They play around a lot with song structure, and it's bass centric, really bass centric, and really cool guitar riffs. Basically, this whole album they go for cool. They try to be as cool as they could possibly be.
It was too Americanized.
Yeah, but I think that's what they were going for. They wanted to be big in America.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was their intent.
Mm-hmm.
But if your only goal when you're writing music is to try and break America, don't write an album.
I think it still holds up. I think the lyrics in this album are very good. They're very simple, but they're very good still.
It's a fine album. But this one I'm saying, like, if your only goal when you get to this point is, well, we want to break America, I don't see... It might be the pretentiousness of me where I view music purely as art.
Right.
If your only goal is, I want to break America so I can make more dosh, that's not what I think of as a goal to have in mind when you're writing music. Music should be personal.
Fair. Okay, fair. See, I would say this album, out of every Arctic Monkeys album, is maybe the best production-wise and music-wise. Because you could just, even if you're not listening to the lyrics, you could just really just jam out to any one of these songs on this album.
I'd say it's I'd agree that it's their most cohesive. Production-wise, it does take a massive step up from where we were on the last album. Lyrically, I don't think it's as good as, say, like the first album.
Fair.
Again, because it goes, rather than sticking with the personalised themes, it goes generic.
Fair. I still think it's better lyrically than most stuff of this caliber out there.
I would agree to an extent.
When you get to music this commercial, the lyrics are still pretty damn relatable.
Well, this thing, it goes back to... It's relatable, but in the most basis sense of the word. So... Whereas before, yes, they were talking about, nights out in Britain, working class, blah, blah, blah. Those are things that we can specifically relate to because we've been there. With this album, it's clearly designed to be, well, I'm going to talk about love, I'm going to talk about lost love, I'm going to talk about people.
It's accessible. Stupidly accessible.
Exactly, which is where I lose interest a bit.
I get that, but I think that's because of personal reasons, obviously. Like, I think technically, if you're thinking objectively, this album is more impressive lyrically because it goes well and in-depth into themes that can be accessed no matter where you are in the world.
But the difference is I'm not a music reviewer or a critic.
Fair. Yeah, fair.
I'm an independent outsider.
Yeah, fair.
Who just happens to do a
So
podcast about
you
it.
understand why this is a very loved album. It just didn't do it for you.
Yes. Yeah, I can understand objectively why it's a very loved album.
Yeah.
Just same way I can objectively look at, and I know we've been over this in the past, same way I can objectively look at the Beatles and go, I understand why they were liked.
Yeah.
And I know I took up a different position, but I do play devil's advocate a lot. But I don't like them.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
It's 100% that. I thought, like, Are You Mine, the only reason I like that song is because it was the first song that I played on Rocksmith on guitar, where I was like, well, this is a bit heavier, this is
The
good.
guitar in this whole album is excellent. The riffs are brilliant.
Yeah, but again, I think it's that weird sort of, always paradoxical where the riffs are catchy, but because they're intended that way, I don't like them. It's weird.
Okay.
It's this odd duality. Yeah, I can listen to the Cribs and go, well,
I think it sounds like this is modern day Beatles to you, and that's why you don't like it.
To an extent, I think also Alex Turner seems to, where he's gone through this transformation, where he's gone into this Grease-like character,
Yeah.
and I think, and I could be wrong on this, so I'll put it out there first. I can't remember where the story was told or who it's told by even. I couldn't even fucking source it when I was looking for it. So this could be very spurious. But the way I look at it is, I heard a story about them at this time and the succeeding albums rather, where this was sort of the point where they started. All their gigs would be meticulously rehearsed.
Yeah. They put on insane live shows throughout this tour specifically.
But even down to the things they would say to the crowd.
Yeah.
The crowd. Everything was rehearsed in minute detail.
Yeah.
That doesn't sit right with me.
Fair. So I think that feeds into the fact that Alex Turner as a person, who is very much, like, they're all very collaborative, so I think this is all of them as a band. But he started to get more interested in storytelling and almost theatre and film. And you'll definitely see that in the last album.
God, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where he's coming from at this. So I think it's still very artistic. It comes from an artistic place, but it's no longer just about music.
Yeah, it doesn't come across as genuine.
Right, fair. I completely understand that. From where they started, which is super genuine, almost the most genuine of the time, lyrically speaking, anyway. Which is why so many people fell in love with them. Now it's flipped the opposite, and this is the best caliber of really accessible rock and roll you could get.
It reminds me, and this is going to be an odd poll now.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of going from And Justice to the Black Album,
With Metallica.
from the Black Album to Load and Reload.
Right, okay. I understand, yeah.
It's that sort of that shift in tone. Excuse me. Where the shift in tone doesn't seem to be artistically driven, it seems to be more commercially driven.
Yeah, I can understand that. I wonder whether your feelings would change if you had heard... Like, I wonder whether the order of the albums is affecting you at all. I wonder if I gave you this album to listen to first, before the others.
I don't know, because I'm... So, Are You Mine would be the first song that I properly knew of the Arctic Monkeys, so this would have been my first introduction anyway. But I think listening to them chronologically is probably the best way of doing it, because I could see their either the growth, or when they start to go, it's not about the music, it's about the money.
And I think it would be fair to say that most people nowadays, that's how they view it, because they'd listen to this first. More people know Arctic Monkeys from this album than any of their other stuff.
And that's the thing, if this was their album, they're going to be less inclined to like the previous albums.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because, like I said, the very first album, I fucking loved it.
When they perform live, they still do a good job of performing a wide variety of their music from all out. But you do get a lot of this album, because this album suits live performances insanely well.
Yeah, so I've watched live performances of like When the Sun Goes Down, for instance, which are from this time period. And they still hold it very well, because obviously they did...
One thing to make note, actually, is they're brilliant live.
But how much of that, from this point onwards, is down to the meticulous sort of, like, planning?
Maybe, but I'm talking more musically speaking. They sound excellent live. He sings excellent live still. He sounds the same.
It's a weird position as well for me to sit here as well. Like, as a musician, you're only going to get better by practice. So me now ragging on them,
completely.
Planning it seems a bit odd. But I tend to view it a different way. When you're doing live gigs, it's your experience in that moment at that time, but also all the crowds you're going to play to, they're going to have similar feelings in terms of like, well, we're here in front of bands that we love or adore, but you need to tailor everything to that crowd that's in front of you on the night, the same way that you would do a play or a production.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I will.
The words are the same, but the tone can always be different.
Yeah, I get you. What I would say is watch one of their. So they got a whole live gig on YouTube from after they made their second album. That is excellent. It's a phenomenal gig.
Am I right in thinking they headlined Glasgow?
Yeah, they headlined Glasgow a couple times, I think. I think they headlined Glasgow
2 or 3 times at least.
On the last Glastonbury or the Glastonbury before?
They definitely did. I think it was 2007. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
That's one of the live performances I watched. Also watched live performance from the AM tour.
Right, so you have seen them back in the day then, when they were really young.
I've seen them really young.
And you preferred it when they were really young, with a lot of energy.
A lot of energy, it's more a rawness to the sound.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's always what I want to bring to the table if I'm playing live.
Completely. I think that the thing is with them is that I don't mind it because I think they've matured well with their age. Now you're not seeing fully grown men running around the place like they're 16 years old, playing music like they were still 16 years old. They've aged and they've recorded and changed their sound with their age. This is a much more mature sound.
But music should still always make you feel like you are that giddy kid on stage.
Fair.
You look at Iron Maiden, despite all their vast production.
Completely, yeah.
Despite the fact that you've got newer, better versions of Eddie, Bruce Dickinson still runs around like he's fucking 2, and he's got a sugar rush.
Yeah, I get you. I will say that I think this album will stand the test of time more than their first album.
I don't
There's a
know.
lot of that. Even we've already mentioned in that first album, the the lyrics are so specific and brilliant, but some of it already doesn't relate now. People don't have even ringtones, music as their ringtones anymore, and that was a lyric that was in the first album.
I was gonna say I do. But
But a load of people don't, you know. A load of people just sing
and-
box standard ringtones. No one gives a shit about ringtones anymore.
for those who are interested, my ringtone is Dying to Make You Blind by Say Yes.
But this
Google
album will always stay relevant because of the way it's structured and the way it talks about its themes.
Do you have ringtones or music for your alarms?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Mine are, so for the alarms that are 6 and 6:30, Roses by the Indelicates,
Yeah.
because it's a slower song to sort of try and gently bring you out of sleep, if I do sleep, which is rare. And then from 7 and 7:30, it's Everything English is the Enemy by the Indelicates. What are yours?
Mine's Jamie T, Sticks and Stones. Great song, great artist. Oh, I should have got you to listen to Jamie T. Actually, I'd love to know what you think of him.
We only have time enough for the Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah. Maybe Jamie T could be a future episode. But Sticks and Stones, great track. Really like quick to wake you up. And then the other one I have is a slower song, lo-fi song called "Stay High" by Tovlo, because I like to wake up in the morning to some moaning.
Fair enough. And now we'll move on to the finale.
Well, quickly, sorry, because we haven't said it. What was your favourite song out of the three of these? We didn't actually go into specifics about the songs, but
Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High, I think.
yeah, that's one of their most popular songs ever. I think that's a very good song, really excellent song.
Well, I'd say Are You Mine, but out of the 3 songs, that wasn't there.
Yeah,
so-
What did you think of I Wanna Be Yours?
Mm.
It's very slow, very.
I just didn't, and we'll get onto this the next time as well. I didn't feel it. It wasn't
Just
for
wasn't
me.
for you. It's like
First-
you appreciate it, but just not sonically what you like.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get you.
100%.
So that album came out in 2013, and then
Whole 5 years next.
yeah, so their latest album, Up to Date. That was really quick math, Jake. Their latest album, Up to Date.
I didn't even have the date written down. I just remembered that it's 2018.
Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, which is a concept album. Now, there's a lot of debate as to whether some of their albums before, as we said, are concept albums, which could actually give a lot of justification for why they went into like maybe a more retro sound or a more rockabilly sound. But this album is 100% a concept album, and if you don't know that going in, you may be like, what the fuck, when you listen to certain songs. So it's kind of difficult because I only gave Jake 3 songs, so he doesn't get the full story or the full picture.
I don't want the full story.
And the biggest thing about this album...
There are barking dogs.
Yeah, so
It's
the biggest
cool,
thing
it's
about
fair.
this album that I will say is about a hotel on the moon and the inner workings of that. Now, going from their first album, which was Kitchen Sink, Working Class, rock and roll / punk, to this, which sounds very lounge music-y, which they did purposefully because it sounds like music you would hear in a hotel, to On the Moon. And for me, this sounds very David Bowie. For you, you said it sounds a lot like Muse.
Yeah.
It's the biggest. If you just listen to those 2 albums, you'd think they're completely different artists.
Do you know how in TV they'll say that when a show does too much, it starts going down? They say it jumped the shark. Just jumped the shark.
You think this jumped the shark? Now, this album actually was insanely critically acclaimed. People love this album, and I have to say, when I first listened to this album, I hated it with a passion. But nowadays, I've given it a few more listens, and nowadays I actually really appreciate it.
On the 3 songs, there's no vocal energy.
He goes for a Bowie. This is the most Bowie he has ever sounded. He sounds so David Bowie.
He just seems to...
It goes back into a more talky way, mixed with a bit of singing.
To an extent, but it's not the talky way in that he had, say, on the first album where he's doing a Sheffield accent. It's like he's doing the talking way,
But he's telling us.
but in an American.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like... So with the first song he got me to listen to, which was Tranquility Base, Hotel and Casino, he's answering the phones.
Yeah, but that's what the character is, though.
Fortunately, I do that for a job.
Yeah.
I don't need to live vicariously through that. Well, actually, technically I do that for a job. I don't actually, but
Yeah.
that's a different story. But yeah, I don't need to be reminded that's what I do through music. Music is escapism.
Okay, but that's very specific to you.
Yeah. Well, and millions of people throughout the UK.
Yeah, but I
and
also
India.
at the moment over quarantine answer phones for a living, and it doesn't bother me.
But it's also the reason I say it sounds like Muse is they take an idea. They clearly sat there thinking, and he's probably putting on an American accent at this point as well. So he's probably going, "Hey guys,
I think it's the characters.
what do you think about the about Base on the Moon? It's a hotel and casino." And the other guy's like, "Hey up, Chuck." And I think, yeah, he jumps the shark. Lyrically, it's not as sharp because, again, he's not talking about his own personal experience. There's no sense of it being genuine. Now, concept albums can work.
Yeah.
But they need to have a kernel of truth in them.
Well, yeah. So for me, this is them trying to be a bit more political.
Give me 3 concept albums, or even 2 concept albums that are good.
Oh, well, I love Quadrophenia by The Who. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
I suppose that's not necessarily a concept album as much as it is a movie album. I don't know where you fall on that, but it is a concept album.
It's a mix, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's about mod culture, and it's about, it's one guy's story, so I'd say it is a concept album. We've already talked about Gavin Clark in Evangelist, which is a concept album, really excellent album.
But again, for Gavin Clark and Toy Drum, it's personal.
Yeah, very personal, very personal.
So the 2 I'd pick,
Yeah,
Welcome to the Black Parade,
yeah.
or the Black Parade, I can't remember
It
which
is well
way
known
around
for
it
the
is.
Black Parade.
Yeah, it's one of the ways. I didn't particularly like Danger Days.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I give leeway on concept albums. I don't think you need to like every song. I think you appreciate some songs, but you love other songs.
And I'd also go for Operation Mindcrime by Queensryche.
I don't know that at all.
It's very good. It's about
Is that punk? Sounds punk.
punky rock, but also very sort of glam in its way.
Alright, I hate glam rock.
It's not Jovi.
Okay. Yeah.
It's sort of heavy-ish, but it's about rebelling against the system and that kind of thing.
Fair.
It's very much like 1984, but an album.
Okay.
But again, it's based on personal of like you wouldn't write that unless
Right.
the full
So
plan
the
is
problem
to.
is this album's a bit too detached for you. It's a bit too documentary.
It's a bit too much made up fluffy shit. I wouldn't necessarily say documentary.
I think it makes a lot of critical. It
Bear
makes
in mind-
a lot of criticisms on the way we see life today, because it's a very retro hotel to put into perspective as well.
Well, it depends how you view it. 'Cause you could view it as, they're building the Overlook Hotel from The Shining on the moon, but it's only purely a commercial cash grab.
Yeah, which it is. In this whole album, it talks a lot about capitalism in general.
Now, bear in mind though, you've only given me 3 songs to listen
Completely,
to.
which is what I said at the start of this.
Yes.
And I did text you saying, bear in mind this is a concept album, so it's hard to grasp some of the things like that. But like for
Wasn't
what
necessarily
other
hard to
songs I
grasp.
gave you? I gave you Tranquility-based Hotel and Casino, 4 stars out of 5. And was it star treatment or 1 point perspective?
1 point perspective.
Right, and all 3 of them, well, so especially Tranquility-based Hotel and Casino with 4 stars out of 5, they're very,
Isn't it just 4 out of 5?
4 out of 5, sorry, yeah. It's
Stop saying
just the chorus
stars.
goes, 4 stars out of 5, that's all
Didn't-
unheard of.
Didn't like that song.
Really, that's my favourite on the album. We'll go into
Fucking
that in a
hated
second.
that chorus.
We'll go into that second.
I will warn you, we don't have much time.
Okay, yeah, sorry. But, so those songs specifically are talking about, commercialism, how they paint things nicely when actually they're shit. Our hotel will go, this is the best place to stay at, and you get there and the cities are shit and everything like that. And that's all
Yeah.
capitalism. And then 1 point perspective, he's talking a bit more about leaders and I think it's got a lot to do with Trump in there personally as well, with the lyrics. But it's a lot to dig into. He's very ambiguous on this album, insanely ambiguous.
Yeah, but also I found boring.
Fair. Did you like any of the 3 songs?
No.
No. Did you appreciate it musically? Because I think musically they do really good on this album. It's a lot more of a lounge funk sound. It's a very clean sound. The bass in this album is great.
The bass was good. Music was fine. Just boring.
Yeah? Fair.
Like, musically it's fine. I can sit there and appreciate a bass line. What I can't appreciate is dullness.
I get it. It's lounge style music. Did you have a favourite out of these 3 songs?
No.
No.
In my mind, they were all equally as shit.
Fair. I really have come to love 4 out of 5. I think it's an excellent song.
Yeah, I mean, talking about hotel star ratings in a chorus, again, it just doesn't do it.
Fair?
Like, it's such... Like, bear in mind, I don't mind wacky concepts in general. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do a wacky concept, so say simulation theory muse,
Yeah.
at least have songs that hook you. So songs like Algorithm Pressure, that's all great for simulation theory. You know, the second law, you've got like Liquid State and Save Me, things like that. With this, the 3 songs at least anyway, I can't speak for the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Those 3 songs, they were just so meh.
Fair.
It was...
I was unsure whether you'd like this or not, because I know it's really out there. And for me, it is 100% Bowie. And I think Bowie did this sort of stuff all the time.
I think there's a reason that this isn't anyone's favourite album ever.
I mean, granted, I'm not saying it's an excellent album, but I don't think it's a bad album. I think it's a really good album, actually, and I appreciate the balls it takes to make an album like this when you're a band of that caliber.
Balls is the wrong word. Hubris is the right word.
Sorry, yeah. But,
and anyone who has hubris or pride like that, they soon learn that they've had to fall.
But the thing is like, you're one of the biggest rock bands in the world, really big mainstream success from AM. You're loved worldwide, and then you decide to make an album as kooky as this. I think that takes a lot of, and because you're interested in the concept, I think that takes a lot of bravery, and I respect it. And they changed their sound completely.
Metallica were interested in grunge. It didn't mean they released a good album.
No, but you can respect it still. Plus, a load of people would say Black Album is an excellent album. I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm talking about Load and Reload.
No, but I was talking, if you're talking about the change from thrash music into more rock and roll, or more just hard rock, the difference between And Justice for All and Black Album...
Oh god, it's night and day.
Yeah.
Now, controversial opinion.
Right.
And we're not talking about them, but we will on the next recording, I promise. Enter Sandman. Shit.
I don't think that's controversial opinion anymore. I think everyone loved it, and it's just oversaturated. It's the same as Mr. Brightside with the Killers. Everyone used to love Mr. Brightside, but everyone's heard it way too much, so no one likes it anymore.
Still annoyed that you didn't get my Sam's Town and fuck, what's the Hot Fuss reference?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I know that was weeks ago now in reality, but still.
But yeah, there are certain songs now that have been overplayed throughout the whole of humankind that everyone's done with them.
Yeah, Enter Sandman, it's just like, it's... I've actually come around thinking like songs like Through the Never and oddly of Wolf in Man on Black Album Mirror.
As I'm getting older, I like the Black Album more and more.
I like it less. I'm actually deviating away from it.
See, I never used to like it to begin with.
I never minded it. I think I was always more of a Master fan growing up because it had Ryan on it.
I like Ride the Lightning. That's my one.
But then I will say, like, as well, being a bassist, Orion was always a big one for me.
Yeah.
However, I've come to realise over the past couple of years, the best instrumental they do is on Ride the Lightning, which is Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
The bass on that is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's true.
People listen to a bass boosted version. However, unfortunately, due to circumstances out of our control, and the fact that we've got to go to a place and get drunk with a previous guest, which is fine, and potentially get more guests, who knows.
We're going to have to
We're going to have to leave it here.
Yeah, well, can I just quickly, to summarise this podcast, which has been quite nice. Sorry, I just need a...
It's quite violent and aggressive.
I know, so...
It's my fault I went on a 20-minute tangent at the start.
We can agree that this whole album is like... this band has changed a fuck ton.
Yes.
Do you, what is your overall thoughts of the Arctic Monkeys? As a whole band in culture, if they were to be... If all of the members died today, and we were to look back at them in history, would you say they were a great band?
No. I think the problem is if you introduce dying in there, everyone's all too happy to make a martyr out of a band.
Yeah, well,
regardless of their
I'm just
quality.
saying, if you're looking at them through the picture of history, or the frame
Looking through the picture of history, they had good songs, they didn't necessarily push the boat out.
Okay.
I would argue, at least in terms of British bands, the Libertines probably had... the Libertines and the Cribs had the most impact on the British indie scene. Libertines especially because they're more well known. I think the Arctic Monkeys are children of that generation, but they don't really add anything new to the table.
I'd say they're the best of that generation.
No.
Fair.
The Cribs.
Fair.
But that's because I'm a massive Cribs
Yeah,
fan.
so that's interesting though. Like, I completely respect that. I think the Arctic Monkeys are a weird one because you people love them and people overrate them or underrate them. I genuinely rate them as one of my favorite bands of all time.
I think the best way of describing it is this for me, actually. You can tell through listening to the music and listening to the lyrics that they've got so many influences, whether it's the Smiths, the Strokes, Libertines, anyone of that ilk. But I don't see anyone being influenced by them.
Really?
Yeah, I think there's too much.
That's an interesting. Actually, that's a very interesting concept. Yeah, I would agree, but I think they master what they've been influenced by. I think they've mastered it.
Well, no, if we're saying the influence of the Smiths, and the Smiths mastered the Smiths.
I love the Smiths to dear. Like, I love the Smiths so much, and I'm not necessarily going to turn around and say that I think the Arctic Monkeys are a better band than the Smiths, but I would most likely listen to the Arctic Monkeys over the Smiths. If you told me to go on a desert island and have the Smiths' greatest hits or the Arctic Monkeys' greatest hits, I'm going to pick the Arctic Monkeys' greatest hits.
Because I can't be asked to guess, your favourite song out of all of those that we talked about?
All of the ones that I gave you?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Or your favourite album and the favourite song from the favourite album.
I don't know about my favourite album. It changes from day to day. Today, my favourite album of theirs is probably Humbug. I'm riding on a Humbug high because I listened to that recently.
So we're going to say Cornerstone of Crying Lightning, I reckon. Was that Humbug?
Yeah, that is Humbug, yeah. I'm going to say Cornerstone, but nah, fuck it. My favourite song of theirs is, out of all the ones we talked about, is When the Sun Goes Down.
We're in agreement.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't think that was going to be mine initially.
Yeah. Or I Want to Be Yours, but I just overrate that song.
Yeah, When the Sun Goes Down, I think, though, is a phenomenal song. It's a perfect mission statement for me.
But aside from that, folks, we love you.
Yeah, thank
Please
you very
love
much
us.
for listening, us jabbing on.
Well, at least the two people that do.
Yeah, this
We
was
love
actually
you.
apart from the start, we flipped it this week. It started off with nothing to do with music, and then it became all about music. It was great.
Yeah, we didn't talk about zombies. But anyways, people. Peace out, you motherfucker.